How to write a novel. It's been said that everyone has a novel inside them. This is probably true. Unfortunately, most people don't know how to write their story. I'm convinced anyone who can write a complete sentence is capable of writing a novel. All it takes is imagination and know-how. In this video, I show you how to write a novel in short increments of 5 or 6 pages at a time. You can find more information about this process at writingIsASuperpower.com/novel. Admittedly, writing a novel is a monumental and complex undertaking. However, when you have a plan and reduce each writing task to 5 or 6 pages, you can write a novel without breaking a sweat. I'll show you how. First, let's discuss the 2 ways you could write a novel. You could use number 1, the brute force seat-of-the-pants method, or number 2, the careful planning scene-by-scene method. Because most aspiring novelists don't know how to plan a novel, they use the brute force seat-of-the-pants method. They sit down and start churning out prose. This method creates the illusion of writing a novel, but usually produces an unstructured and unreadable stream of consciousness ramble. Some writing teachers encourage the brute force seat-of-the-pants method. I don't. Just as an unstructured sentence is confusing, an unstructured novel is confusing too. No one reads a novel because they want to be confused. People read novels because they want to be entertained. The brute force seat-of-the-pants method is a colossal waste of time, energy, and creativity. When you plan your novel before you type the first word, you divide the process into 2 essential phases. First, you have the creative phase, where your creative powers are set free and focused. Second, you have the production phase, where you write the manuscript scene by scene. This planning method results in an efficient creative process that produces a novel the reader will enjoy and that has a reasonable chance at commercial success. A novel is a big fat lie. If you knew you had to tell a big fat lie, would you just wing it, or would you plan out what you had to say and practice over and over again until it sounded true? Planning your novel is like practicing a lie until it rings true. Before we get into the details of planning your novel, let's take a moment to address plot and a bit of foundational advice. For the sake of this video, we'll reduce plot to its bare bones. Plot is what happens when the hero of your story pursues a goal but is confronted by an opposing force. The hero's desire to reach her goal drives the story forward. The opposition creates conflict. The greater the conflict, the greater the tension. Tension keeps the reader interested in the story. Without conflict, there is no story. Often the most enjoyable stories are simple stories well told. Keep your story simple and short, and maintain the same point of view from beginning to end. Avoid flashbacks or flash forwards. Flashbacks and flash forwards disrupt the flow of the story. Tell your story from start to finish. I recommend that you limit your first novel to about 250 pages. Just to be clear, the first purpose of a novel is to entertain. However, the ultimate purpose of a novel is to create a satisfying emotional release within the reader. In his memoir on writing, Stephen King recalls his mother describing paperback novels as mini vacations. For many readers, novels are a source of dopamine. Reading is their feel-good fix. Planning a novel increases the odds of successfully entertaining the reader, triggering within them an emotional response and a satisfying dopamine release. This level of writing begins with story structure. As we move into planning your novel, we must take a step back to be sure we understand story structure. Structure is essential. A story has a beginning, middle, and end. In theater and film, the beginning, middle, and end are designated as Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. We can use the same 3-act structure in novels. Act 2 is twice as long as the others. If we divide Act 2 in half, we have 4 equal parts: Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. If the novel you intend to write will be 250 pages long, we can plan for Act 1 to span pages 1 through 63. Act 2A would span pages 64 through 125, Act 2B pages 126 to 188, and Act 3 would span pages 189 to 250. Already, you have reduced your project to 4 manageable chunks of about 63 pages each. Divide each of the 4 parts in half to create 8 equal-sized sections. Now you can focus on a still smaller writing task of approximately 31 pages. Designate these 8 sections with letters. Call them A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Think of these sections as containers that hold scenes. In each section, plan to have 5 scenes. Each scene will be about 5 or 6 pages long. Now, instead of trying to write a 250-page manuscript, you can focus on writing a single scene that is only 5 or 6 pages long. It's so much easier this way. Successful novels are not written. They are built, one scene at a time. For a novel that is 250 pages, expect to write about 40 scenes. Now that you've reduced the writing process to approximately 40 scenes, what do you write in each scene? Answer to that depends on what your story is about, and that leads us to your story idea. The most important element of your story is the core idea. Eric Bork, author of The Idea, writes that 60% of what makes your project potentially successful, or not, is the core idea. The core idea of your story is what it's about. It's how you explain your story to a friend, an editor, or a big-shot literary agent you bump into at a party. It's what you write in the book description to entice people to buy it. Don't skip this part. It's critical to have a solid story idea early in the process. Take your time and figure it out. Once you have a bomb-proof story idea in mind, you're almost ready to lay out the 40 scenes of your novel. But first, we need to talk about plot beats. A plot beat is the smallest unit of a story. It can be expressed in an infinite variety of ways. Blake Snyder, the late author of the screenwriting book Save the Cat, writes about 15 universal plot beats he discovered during his 20-year Hollywood writing career. Other writing teachers have found similar story patterns, such as the hero's journey, as taught by Joseph Campbell and Christopher Vogler, The Virgin's Promise by Kim Hudson, and 23 Actions All Great Heroes Must Take in Story Solution by Eric Edson. Each of these authors are worth your time to study. Their insights will substantially advance your skills as a novelist. However, to illustrate how to plan a novel, we'll stick with Blake Snyder's 15 plot beats. To thoroughly understand each beat, please refer to Save the Cat. It's an easy, fun read that will change forever how you see movies and stories. I've added the approximate page where the beat will occur in a 250-page novel manuscript. Here are Blake Snyder's 15 plot beats adapted to a 250-page novel manuscript. Number 1, opening image, pages 1 to 3, a glimpse of the hero's normal world. Number 2, theme stated, pages 10 to 12, an indirect clue as to what the story is about. Number 3, setup, pages 1 to 25. The protagonist, aka hero, antagonist, and supporting characters are introduced within the context of the hero's normal world. Number 4, catalyst, pages 25 to 30. Something happens that changes the hero's life and sets the story in motion. The hero's normal world is changed forever. Number 5, debate, pages 27 to 55. The hero does not want to change, and he doesn't want an adventure. He wants his normal world back. Number 6, break into Act 2, pages 57 to 62. The hero begins his adventure. There's no going back. Number 7. The B story begins, page 67. Events occur that test the hero. This is where a love story may enter the picture. Number 8. Fun and games, pages 67 to 125. The story moves sideways and events occur that illustrate what the story is about. Number 9. Midpoint, page 125. This scene can end on an upbeat note or a downbeat note. With a love story, this is usually where the relationship is consummated. Number 10. Bad guys close in, pages 125 to 170. The opposition grows stronger and ultimately defeats the hero. Number 11. All is lost, page 170. If the midpoint scene was upbeat, this scene is a downer for sure, with a whiff of death thrown in for good measure. Number 12. Dark Night of the Soul, pages 170 to 193. The hero hits rock bottom with no apparent way to win. Number 13. Break into Act 3, pages 187 to 193. With inspiration from the B story, the hero digs deeper and tries again. Number 14. Finale, pages 187 to 250. The hero employs the moral truth he discovered during the story and defeats the opposition. Number 15. Final image, page 250. A mirror image of the opening scene illustrates a change in the hero and a new normal. When we add Blake Snyder's plot beats to our modified 3-act story structure, we begin to see what to write in each scene. Depending on the genre, you may need to add additional plot beats. A scene is essentially a short story set in one physical location. It has conflict, a beginning, a middle, and an end. A scene moves the story forward. The next time you watch a movie, notice how it's told scene by scene with an occasional transition. Transitions tie scenes together but do not move the story forward. You really don't need many transitions. Don't worry about transitions until after you've written all the scenes and are adding them to a single document. Because scenes are typically 5 or 6 pages long and chapters are typically 7 to 12 pages long, a single longish scene will make a chapter, in which case the chapter break will serve as a transition. For now, let's return to the creative process. Using the 3-act story structure and Snyder's 15 plot beats, you can create a storyboard to help you visualize your story from start to finish. A couple of 36 by 24-inch corkboards mounted side by side to a wall will form a storyboard 6 feet wide and 2 feet tall. Starting from the top left corner, divide the corkboards into 8 columns. Each column is about 6.5 inches wide. Label the top of each column according to the 8 sections of story structure, A, B, C, etc., all the way to H. In each section, use 3 by 5 cards to note the story beat that should occur in that section. For example, in section A, the top card will be Scene 1, Opening Image. Below it is the card Scene 2, Setup, followed by Theme Stated and perhaps Setup Continued. Section A ends with Scene 5, the Catalyst. Continue the process through all the sections. Section C is the B story. Section D continues the B story and ends with the midpoint. Section E has the bad guys close in. Section F, the bad guys continue to close in and all is lost. Section G, your hero suffers a dark night of the soul, but begins to rally to the cause. Section H, your hero digs deep within to defeat the opposition. The final scene shows change and a new normal. When you have your storyboard set up this way, you can sit back and leisurely dream about your story. This is the creative phase. This is where your inner creative genius gets to play. Imagine your story into existence, scene by scene. Practice the big fat lie until it rings true. Each section has room for 5 or 6 scenes. Using the storyboard as a guide, imagine each scene. Use a 3x5 card to note each scene and number them accordingly, scene 1, scene 2, etc. The cards are meant to be used as a cue for each scene. Use a 3-ring binder and note paper with a section for each scene to record extensive notes. As you plan your scenes, remember there must be a clear cause and effect. Scene 2 happens because of what happened in scene 1. For example, in scene 2, Bubba moves in with his mother because in scene 1, his girlfriend threw him out of the trailer. Your plot evolves because all the scenes are strung together in logical sequence of cause and effect. The Save the Cat franchise markets a storyboard software that streamlines the planning process. Scrivener offers a similar software. I use the Save the Cat storyboard software after the creative phase and after I have the story planned on a physical wall storyboard. The flickering speed of a computer monitor interferes with the slower brain waves needed for deep creativity. For this reason, I do the bulk of my creative process offline, the old-fashioned way. The creative phase can take weeks or months, sometimes years. Stay in the creative phase until you have a clear vision of your story up to the midpoint and a fairly good idea of how it ends. The reason you plan your story in detail up to the midpoint, but not to the end, is because as you write the first half of your story, it will change. As you write, you'll get ideas for scenes in the second half of your novel. When your story is clearly mapped out, scene by scene, to the midpoint, and you know how your story ends, it's time to start writing. Each scene on your storyboard is an assignment. Start at the beginning and write each scene. As you work your way through Act 1 and Act 2A, you'll get ideas for scenes in Act 2B and Act 3. As necessary, add or change scenes and finish planning the rest of your novel. We've covered a lot of ground in this video. If your head is spinning, I understand. Remember, there's more information at writingisasuperpower.com/novel. The novel writing system you've learned in this video is powerful. It will help you write your best and to ever improve as novelists. By using this system as the foundation of your writing process, your imagination is free to explore, discover, and to bring into the world something profound.